Welcome. Julie Johnson here with us. She is a representative with the Texas House for District 115, and we're so excited to sit and chat. Julie, I'm so excited to hear about what's been going on this session. I understand you've got 12 days more and you're almost done for the year. So talk to us a little bit about what's going on. What are we missing down there?
Good Lord, it's crazy down
Or
here.
what do we wish we're missing?
Yes, exactly. So as of the date of this recording, we have 12 days left of the legislative session. And so it has been a crazy, crazy time. It's the most conservative session by many that we've had in the last, 10 to 20 years, with some of the agenda that has been pushed out from the more conservative side of the Republican Party. It's been a little concerning. We've had a full assault on, for this group's perspective, on women's rights, but also on access to the courts and trial issues that I worked really hard on. And there's obviously one of the preeminent issues has been the voting rights bill and access, restricting those who can vote. And so there's just been a lot of issues that have come up in the legislative session this time. Guns, we've kind of dealt with them all this time. Normally what happen is they'll pick one issue that we have to suffer through and then we can focus on other policy issues. But this time we've hit them all. We've hit guns, abortion, voting. We've done a lot of stuff. It's been a very difficult session, actually.
Well, let me back up a little bit because I know you have been appointed to do two different committees. And for those of us who haven't gone through this experience, tell us how that happened and what those two committees are and how bills work through committee and get presented to the House.
Sure. So every member gets assigned to two standing committees. It's part of the rules of the House. And the committees that I was assigned to was House Appropriations, which is a big deal because we control the budget. The Texas economy is the 9th largest economy in the entire world. And so we have a big impact on the budget and issues affecting education by just virtue of how many textbooks we buy and everything else. And then I also was appointed to Judiciary Civil Jurisprudence. And I was on that committee last session as well. And obviously everything to do with our professional lives goes through that committee. And so I'm always really pleased to serve on that. It has something, obviously, that I've been practicing law 30 years this year. And so it's something I know a lot about and fight hard to protect our right of access to the courts for our clients. And we've had a doozy this session. There's been a lot of bills filed. The way the bill process works is any member can file a bill and on any topic. And then those bills get assigned to a committee. The committee chairman can make the decision on whether or not they're going to give that bill a hearing. And if so, then we have a hearing or witnesses can come and testify. It's open to the public. Any member of the public can register to testify for or against a bill. And then it's up to the committee chairman to schedule a vote. And if that bill gets voted out of committee, then it gets sent to the House calendars. And then it's up to the House calendars committee to schedule it for a floor vote. And then it decides if it passes the floor. And if it does, if it passes the House, then it gets sent over to the Senate. And they have a similar process. They have to approve the bill. And if the Senate votes on the bill, then it gets sent to the governor. If the Senate makes an amendment or changes the House version, then it comes back to the House. And we either confer or we appoint a committee to work out the difference. So, it's quite a journey for a bill to actually get passed in the Texas legislature.
I know that you have sponsored quite a number. You've co-authored, you've authored some, you've co-sponsored some. They seem to primarily deal with healthcare, access to healthcare, consumer protection. Mm-hmm. Why are those subjects important to you? And is that going to be a trend for you in the future?
Well, I think just virtue of the nature of the kind of law that we practice, right? We encounter people every day that don't have insurance and don't have access to quality health care. And we have to really work hard to form relationships with physicians who will see our patients under a letter of protection so that they can get quality health care. And so I see that. My wife is a physician, and so I see healthcare from that point of view, from a provider and the obstacles that they face. And so it seems like it was a good lane for me. And also last session, I was on the insurance committee. And when you get into the legislature, you can't be an expert on all things. And you really do. And if you're going to be effective, you have to sort of pick a lane. And my lane is really, I have two. One is healthcare and the other are civil jurisprudence issues. So those are the kind of the areas that I spend the majority of my legislative offensive time on, and so to speak, on bills that I file. But I also obviously work on a lot of defensive things too.
And we'll get to that too. But Julie, I know you as a mediator and as a personal injury attorney. You have your own practice here in Dallas. And we were talking earlier, and I was kind of surprised, how the session works. But you are in Austin right now, and you're there morning to late at night for 140 days.
140 days. That's right.
Okay. So tell us about that. Offense versus defense. How's this session going?
Well, I'm going to just go back and kind of address the schedule for a bit. As women, and as every one of you know, watching this presentation, we have to balance our home life. We have to balance our professional life. And we're oftentimes the glue that holds it all together. Being in the legislature just adds another layer of complexity to that, because I travel back and forth between Austin and Dallas. I come home every weekend, at least I try to. But here in the session, I'll have committee hearings at appropriations, for example. We usually start at 7:30 in the morning. And then we're on the floor sometimes till late, or have committee or another event that I have to do. And I usually don't get home, or at least ready to get into bed until 10:30 or 11, or sometimes later. Like last week, for example, we were on the floor until midnight. The week before that, we had the voting rights bill that went till 3:30 in the morning. And the day before, we had the abortion bill that went till 1 in the morning. And, the schedule is exhausting. It's really, really hard. And it is a challenge to try to maintain a law practice in conjunction with serving in the legislature. It's really, really hard. Fortunately, I have a fabulous staff who's worked with me for a long, long time. My number one legal assistants worked with me for 24 years now. And so, and as you all know, a great legal assistant is invaluable in our practice. But the harder thing is kind of maintaining business. As a mediator, I really enjoy that. But when you're not available to mediate for a couple months or a period of time, people move on. And so I really do rely on people who value my service here is for business to keep me going when I'm not in session, and to book cases with me and realize, hey, we need to support those that are down there advocating. And so I always appreciate that. And I have a lot of friends who, try to use me, because I think I do a good job in mediation. But that's been really hard when you take on something else to keep the consistency of your practice going, especially when you have a mediation practice like that. But fortunately, in terms of the actual trial advocacy of case handling, I have several lawyers that can kind of keep that going while I'm down here.
It's good to remember for all of us out there, because Julie, you are doing a great job for us in Austin, and we should pay that back by seeing you for mediations. You really are great at mediation. Tell us how the bills are going. I know we'd all like to hear that you write them, you sponsor them, you put them out there, and they pass. But this has been an unusual year, and we were talking about, telling me that sometimes the best you can do is prevent something from happening, even if you can't push a bill through. So talk to us a little bit about that.
I know. I was kind of venting with my family over the weekend, and my son was a high school football player, played linebacker. And I was complaining that, it didn't seem like we were able to really get any huge Democratic wins in terms of legislation this session, and that we were playing defense. He reminded me, well, Mama, defense wins the football game. And that's really been I think the word of this session. We've had to fight back really terrible things And just to even focus on trial practice, something that's near and dear to this audience, just if we start with the trucking bill that was filed, that was, Texas for Lawsuit Reform has always engages in an assault on access to the courts for our clients every session. In this session, they concluded that, big 18 wheelers are unfairly targeted. We're running small businesses out, and they need essentially tort reform to protect them and keep them from getting big jury verdicts, even though we all know some of the most unsafe practices on our highways, and they cause really harm and kill a lot of people just due to their complete lack of compliance with regulatory safety requirements. So we've had that bill. So for example, let's just talk about that one. So that was a very restrictive, by most accounts. If that bill had passed in its originally filed form, it would essentially end trucking litigation as we know it. And so it comes through my committee. We had a 13-hour hearing. And I want to give TTLA a huge shout out. They organized trial lawyers from around the state to come with their clients who have had significant impact from unsafe trucks come and testify at this hearing. We had over 100 people testify and really share their stories. And it had a profound impact. And, and I was in that hearing every minute, arguing back, questioning, cross-examining witnesses that were trying to advance this bill and to highlight the ludicrousy of what they were trying to do. And then we were able to get a committee substitute and amend the bill, make it a lot less impactful, but it still wasn't great, right? So we still have to come at it. And then it gets on the floor, and we had a very aggressive floor strategy to get some different amendments on it to really reduce the impact. And we were able to be successful in that. Right now, the bill is over in the Senate. They just had their hearing, and we're expecting them to concur on the House version and really minimize the impact of what that bill would have had. And so, at some point we can go through the details in great literature, but there's also paid incurred. There's a bill like that was out there. We've been able so far to effectively kill it. There was a really bad MDL bill. We were able to get that essentially neutralized. So there's just been a lot of things that have been attacking our practices that have taken a lot of our time.
Let me ask you: is the discussion between is it policy or partisan politics, Republican, Democrat, or is it the personal injury versus defense, or is it a lobbying effort? And are people open to hearing? Is the cross-examination of witnesses, are people open to changing their mind listening to when these bills are discussed?
It's very partisan. It's not plaintiff versus defense bar. It is Republican versus Democrat, and it is Texans for Lawsuit Reform who put a lot of money into Republican elections demanding this, and holding Republicans accountable financially in terms of campaign contributions if they don't support these bills. There are a lot of lawyers who are Republicans who recognize the terrible policy that these bills are advocating, but they feel that they are in a box politically, that if they don't vote for it, they're going to have primary challenges or they're not going to get funded. This is all election finance. And
how can the cross-examination of witnesses make a difference? And how are you able to slow down the passage of these bills? How are you able to be successful?
Well, you have to highlight just the absolute ludicrousness of it, and obviously find a message that's impactful, like safety. We want Texans to be safe on our roadways, and it's bad public policy to advocate for principles that will diminish public safety and make, Texas already is the number one state for trucking fatalities in the country. And we already have some of the most unsafe roadways. And so you really focus on that. And it's really hard for an elected official to vote for something that's going to make our roadways more unsafe. And so obviously when you really highlight that and you really glaringly emphasize that they can't ignore it and run away from it, they're searching for ways to make it better so that they can vote for the bill. And so it really does create an environment where please please, dear God, do something to make this bill better, because I have to vote for it and I don't want to vote for it in that way. That's a common way that what these hearings do is they really highlight the problems with the bill and really kind of put pressure points for them to negotiate the bill. What we were able to do to negotiate the bill to make it much better than what it was when it was filed.
So those that don't pass in 12 days when the session ends are dead. But session is every other year.
Yes, the Texas legislature meets every other year, so in odd numbered years from January to May for
Okay.
140 days. And then, but that is always subject to the call of a special session by the governor.
And in the meantime, in the off year, I assume that's when the bills are being tweaked and written and lobbied for in anticipation of the next session. Is that fair?
Yeah, so during the interim, we can work on issues that we want to kind of get filed. You know, I usually will put a call out to say, hey, any of you have any bill ideas that you need, anything that's come up in your practice that you think, hey, we really could fix this, you know, and try to collect a lot of ideas about things that we can file for the upcoming session. But the off season is really the time when people campaign and get reelected. That's really what people spend their time doing.
Okay. Other than reelecting you and contributing to your campaign, which is number one, need to do that to keep making this happen. What else can people do who want to help you other than keep you in office? Does writing your representative or writing anybody help, or what should we do?
Well, you know, I think if what my request for lawyers is to engage your clients into getting registered to vote and to go vote. You know, if we could engage increase voter participation, we could be a democratic state that would promote a lot of initiatives that we care about. And I think lawyers are in a unique position. They're in a trusted relationship, and we encounter a lot of different people in the course of a year. And I would love to see in any client sign-up packet a voter registration form to say, hey, are you registered to vote? Do you need to update your voter registration? You know, there is a full-on assault on voting rights in this state, and lawyers need to step up and take a more active responsibility in terms of educating people on their voting options, their voting rights, and making sure they're registered to vote. It's easy to get a voter registration form from, let's say, the Dallas County Elections Office or wherever your county elections office are. There are these little white forms. You can pass them out. Your clients, they're prepaid postage. They're super easy. And they can fill it out and drop it in the mail and get registered to vote or update their address. And so I would love to see lawyers take a much more vigilant effort and approach to voter registration. That would make a significant impact in our state politics.
That was great. I appreciate the time that you gave us, Julie. I know you're busy, and I know you've already been in committee this morning. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and fill us in with everything that's going on. Thank you, and good luck. Keep doing what you're doing.
Hey, thanks so much. And I appreciate the Dallas Women Lawyers Association. You know, I've been a member for a long time, but I don't seem to make as many events because of my schedule. But you know, women need to be lawyers, and we need to be out there, and we're advocates. And I feel like our voice is important. And I'm really pleased that the Dallas Women Lawyers Association is around to bring that collective for women together to find our companionship and bonds and mentorship and everything else to try to juggle all the balls that we all have and to effectively represent our clients. And I really appreciate your friendship, Anjel, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
You're here. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care.